Welcome back. We're going to continue talking about CSS. In our previous videos, we started working on our CSS framework, and I have a sample of it here on the right side of the screen. And I've, styled the basic fonts. I've styled some headings. I added some styles for some buttons. Let's talk about styling the form elements. Okay. So how's that going to work? Well, this is what, like I have a basic form here, and anybody that would want to, create a form, they might write the same markup. So here I have some form styles in the HTML for this document, and I've created a form tag, and then inside the form tag, I'm using the label to arrange or to associate a label with an input. So right here, I have an input for text, and then I have an input here for the label. And we want to do this. This is the standard arrangement, right? You're usually going to have your form elements. They're going to be in the form tag to group them together. And then if you have an input with a label, the input will be inside the label. You can also associate it with the for attribute, but this is kind of a very common way to do it. And the idea is that if you have the label, clicking on the label activates the form element. So you can see here, if I click on the name of the label, the form element becomes activated. That only works because the input is inside the label, okay? And the same thing will work with the checkbox, right? So I can click on the label for the checkbox and it activates the checkbox, right? The same as clicking on the box, right? So we usually want to have this arrangement, but by default, this is what it looks like, right? And the reason it looks the way that it does, and you can see like it kind of looks goofy, like as I make the window larger, everybody aligns right in a row. And that's because the input element is an inline element by default. So it arranges itself in line like words on a page, right? And the same thing with the span, right? And the label. So these are inline elements, and so everybody's going to line up like, like words in a paragraph. And then that's not how we normally want to read a form, right? So what we're going to do with our framework is we're going to add a couple styles to make the forms behave in a reasonable way, right? And look a little better. So one other thing, let me zoom in on this a little bit, right? So if you look at this, the outline, and it looks a little different depending on your browser, but the outline here for the input looks different from the outline here for the text area, right? The border is a little different, right? So, the styles of these are not consistent, right? So we kind of want to try and make them a little more consistent and also give them some reasonable behavior. So if someone just wrote this markup, form and label and input, they would get a reasonable looking form, okay? So anyway, enough talk, let's do it, right? I'm going to go to my style sheet here, and I'm going to create a new section for form styles, okay? And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to style the form element. And normally the way that I like to read forms is top to bottom, where every input is on its own line, right? So let's just make the form display flex by default. Okay, so display flex, and that puts everybody in a row, which actually looks better than it did before, but still doesn't look good. So what we'll do is we'll change it to flex direction column. Okay, so that's looking a lot better, right? Not great though, right? Because the labels are to the left, followed by the input, and then the label is, they're all different lengths, right? So that looks a little weird, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to say label tag, okay? Let's style the label tag. Now remember, the label contains two children, right? Usually, so it's going to be the actual text of the label and the input or whatever form element is being labeled, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to say display flex, and we're going to say flex direction column. Okay, so that looks pretty reasonable, right? Like if I created a form and it looked like this, I wouldn't be unhappy, right? looks a lot better than it did a moment ago. Now people can customize this. So like if we give them this style sheet as our base style, you know, they could get something that looked like this, and then they could add their own styles on top of it, right? We'll maybe add a couple more things here. So, you know, but it doesn't have to do much more than this. And if they want to overwrite this because they want to put the labels on the left side of the input, then they can override the styles that we have here, right? Okay, so the next thing is let's actually style these input elements and the text area. I kind of want these all to have the same style, right? So the input is for a single line of text, and the text area is for a multi-line text input, okay? So this lets us put in more than one line right here, and these are each good for one line, right? So how are we going to handle those? Let's do it this way. Let's say input, comma, text area, and then let's do this. Let's do border, and these have a border, like a default border, right? So, and the border is kind of different on all of them, right? So let's just unify the borders by making them all the same for everybody, right? So I'm going to say border width, let's call it 2 pixels, and then let's do border style is going to be solid, right? Oh, so that's looking a little better. Everybody looks the same. The color doesn't look great though, so let's fix that, right? Now, the border color is kind of up to you. I feel like I want to use one of my variable colors that I have, right? So let's see here. So I got the primary color, I got the background color, I got the size. I really kind of need a dark color and a light color, right? So I'm going to make a dark color here, and you know, imagine like you need to do like an inverted thing like dark mode, right? Then we could swap the light and dark color, right? So I'm going to set this to be, let's do 666. It's kind of a dark gray, right? Let's do that. That'll be our dark color, right? So anyway, anytime we need like a dark gray, it'll be this one. Maybe that's not, maybe we need a medium color actually. I'm thinking, let's do color medium. Let's see, 888, no wait. Yeah, maybe this color right here. Let's use this one for right now. And then, you know, we could change that. And again, since I have it in a variable up here, when I get all the styles in, I can go in here and adjust these colors just at the top, and it'll, you know, propagate through my entire page. So let's see. So that doesn't look too bad there. I think that looks a little better. So now the other thing is the text inside these elements is a little smaller than the regular font size. So if I go back to 100% size, this is the regular text size, but the text on the inputs is a little bit smaller, which is hard to read. So let's make this font size of 1 rem, okay? And then the border goes right up to the edge of the text, so that doesn't look that great, right? We need a little space around the form elements. So let's add a little bit of padding. Let's do padding of 1/2 a rem. Okay, so if I was to use a form on my page and I just wrote the basic markup and it looked like this, I would probably be happy, right? And you could customize it. So, you know, we don't have to do a lot here, but if we got some basic styles in that made things look reasonable, then that would be great, right? So I think that this is doing the job. Maybe I'll do one more thing. These spans right here are kind of like, they're just the labels. So maybe I want to make them kind of sit in the background a little bit. So these could be like a little bit smaller font size. They could be a little bit lighter in color. So maybe I'll do that. I'll say label your text is going to be color. Let's actually use that same color that we used here, right? So maybe I'll do that, right? So the labels will be kind of grayed out, right? Now that doesn't affect the text inside the input though, right? Or we could set this text to be whatever color. So anyway, so thanks for watching, and I hope that this kind of gets you started on styling the forms, right? And you can do more with these, right? You can do as much as you want, but don't overdo it, right? Remember, we're just setting some base styles that anybody could use. But think of the things that you can do to make it, kind of unique and, something that maybe is unique to you, right? And you could round the corners on the boxes. You could adjust the border here. You could play with the border. You could set the inner color for the input. The inputs you can also use a text inset, or no, a shadow inset on the text or the box, right? So let me do that actually just for fun. So if you wanted to add a little bit of a shadow on the inside of the box, you could do that, right? Why don't we do this? Let's do box shadow, and then I'll do, I'm gonna make it offset. This is the offset on the horizontal. This is the offset on the vertical, and then this is the spread of the shadow, right? So I'll do 6 pixel spread, and then the last option is the color. Okay. Here I've added a shadow on the outside of the box. Let's actually make this red, and then you'll be able to tell. So you can see it's kind of outside of that gray border. But if we want to put this on the inside, we can do inset here, right? And now the shadow's on the inside of the box. So, if I did that, then I could have kind of a box with a shadow. This shadow color is a little too dark, right? So you could change that to a transparent gray, and that would give it a more subtle shadow color, right? Let's make that even lighter, right? So you could do something like that, I think I'm going to leave that off. It looks a little too much style, but maybe if you made it more subtle, what if you did like 3, I'll leave it up to you, I think I'm going to leave this off of mine, and then people can add that if they want it, right? So anyway, again, thanks for watching. My challenge now to you is to finish styling the form elements, right? Think about how they look, right? And you set the style, right? You can set the font size, you can set the border. If you want a stretch challenge, add some class names that style the form elements as large and small. And we saw that in the Bootstrap strap here. Let me look that up, right? We saw that in their docs. So if I go to the Bootstrap docs and I look up forms, and I look up the form controls, you can see here that they have, basic form style. So I think mine looks, not quite as good as theirs. Theirs looks pretty good, but mine's not looking bad, right? It's looking close, right? They have a more subtle border and a tiny bit of a rounded corner there. Right, where's the sizes here? They have let me find size here. Yeah, I forget where they have this, but they have an example here where they have the form elements at different sizes, right? So you can follow what they did and maybe kind of compare what you're doing and see how it compares, right? So anyway, again, sorry I kind of rambled there. Thanks for watching, and I hope that this gets your forms started. And again, like, our goal is to complete this default, like, kind of framework style sheet that anybody could import and get some reasonable styles on any web page. Okay, and you might use it in the future. You could recommend it to your friends or your company or whatever. Okay, again, thanks for watching.